Hello and welcome to another GameGuru MAX live broadcast number 80, and I apologise for the double take on the intro video. I was reading the chat. Well, actually I was thinking on reading the chat, but basically I've realised that anyone who asks a question and they're watching through Twitch, they're not getting their questions answered, so I apologise for last week. I'm going to see what I can do live and unrehearsed this week to try and grab some of those questions. But if I, for whatever reason, I forget or I can't, I will certainly scour those chats, put all your answers in the GameGuru forums later on. But before we get to any of that, I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay. So I'm going to go to one of my chat windows, for I have many. We can hear you. Wonderful, great, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to show you some software. This week, I want to show you some new weapons. Now, anyone who's a long-standing member of our little tribe of GameGuru users will recognise these weapons. But we figured if we want new weapons for GameGuru MAX, let's go and find the best weapons that we know about. And that, of course, from the most excellent EAI collection. And I'm going to show you those now. So if I just pop on here, see it all works. If you see I'm getting a bit stuttery, it's simply because I'm getting used to the screens being in different places. But hopefully everyone can see my software screen. I'm pretty sure that's fine. Okay, so you can see the GameGuru MAX welcome screen. I'm going to go into my game project, select this one, which I've just been playing with, and I'll show you the new weapons. So I'll just go straight in to the level. Up to now, all you've really had is the pistol and a rifle. Well, we've expanded out those weapon types and added a new one, and also some melee, some up close and personal weapons. So I've got my weapons down there on some tables, but I'll just show you this one first, which of course is the I can't remember the designation. I'm just going to call it some kind of assault rifle / carbine. And then you got mode switch, so you got rapid fire. Obviously all the weapons can be reloaded, and you've got zoom mode if you want to get really accurate. Then we've got the one I am familiar with, the AK. So you've got that, and of course you've not got a scope, but you can center it, do some damage like that. Here are some other weapons. I don't know which order I'll pick them up, but on that later. You've got a knife, so you can quickly attack. Sledgehammer, so you can bash things. Got a grenade, so throw that one up there. So you got a little smoke trail leading after the grenade, and then an explosion, so don't be next to that grenade when it goes off. This takes same ammunition as the first one I started as a default. And it's a single shot because it's a tactical gun. But if I go into the second mode, I've got a nice super zoom. So I can get right in. Maybe, yeah, bad at this. Yeah. So there you go. So you got zoom, and then that's just, you know, without the super scope. What else have we got? That weapon we already had. We started with that. This is what's called a snub nose magnum. I do know that one, as I was doing some renaming. Originally the weapons are using the incredibly long acronyms and codes and things, so we have done some weapon renaming. For now, we need to pass it by our weapons expert to make sure that we've not made the names of these weapons too simple. But effectively, both pistols are magnums. You've got the snub nose, and then here, if I got it right, yeah, there it is. This is what's called a tactical magnum. So you can see it's a little bit more, well, yeah, and you've got the cartridge instead of the sort of the revolving sort of ammunition thing. That's about as technical as I'm going to get. And then you've got the what's basically called a tactical shotgun. So bang bang, and of course you can hit the water with multiple. I think it's called shot, and you can reload, etc. I think that's it for the weapons. There might be one or two more, but I think that's most of them. And let's just find one of my rifles. He likes rifles, so yeah, that's the one. So you got that. This is a single shot, so like that. So you're only using one bullet. But if you go into the mode and get a reload, I like this because it's like you can really spray your ammunition around. Obviously, you're going to run out of ammo quicker. just more fun though. Let's see if we can dispatch this guy. Yeah, there you go, try and handle all that. And he was, well, he didn't really stand a chance. So those are all the weapons. We've been playing around with, not playing around, basically fixing all the normal maps, adding surface textures, making sure that they're now completely lined up with how a PBR rendering system works. I'm pretty happy with that. We are going to play around a little bit more with things like speeds. I don't know whether you saw this, but just go through until I find the one. And again, more on that in a little while. Is it one? Yeah. So fast that knife is. So I need to again consult our weapons guru just to make sure that all of the speeds and the transitions and everything are as best as we can get them for the release in March. And just on a side note, because you probably spotted them, we have fish. See, so all you got to do, we've got the fish scripts, the fish behaviors working now. So they basically you can scare them, so they zoop off. They also have proper collision. They also stay in the water. If you actually dropped a fish on the bank outside of the water, they'll flail around as if they're suffocating. Suffocating in air. So yeah, that's also something. And so what that means is now mammals and behaviors for fish are in. The only things we're waiting on now are the birds. So birds in trees, birds in the sky. And if we do have time, I think we will have time, snakes. So snakes won't move around very much, but if you're walking through a forest and you turn a corner and you're too close to a snake, then you're going to get attacked. So that's the main thing I wanted to show. But before I finish and then hand it over to some questions, I want to show you something on the UI side that I've been working on. This is our player character, so you place this down where you want to start your game. If you go to customize, you get to customize your player, you know, the settings that you want your player to start with. A lot of these you'll be familiar with. Weapons. If it says weapon, that should really say starting weapon, but we'll leave it as weapon now just in case we've started the process of creating videos and snapshots for the user manual, etc. But you get the idea that, as you saw in the test level, I started with the submachine gun, and that's the one that you ended up with when you first started. But if you look further down, past these other things you may not know about, like how much ammo you'll start with, what's got a damage multiplier is how much that bullet will hurt anyone you shoot it through. So currently it's set to 100, basically 100%, no modification. You can make the bullet weaker by making it less than 100, or much, much stronger by increasing that value. And similar as to the weapons damage, it's also melee damage. If you run up close and you hit somebody with your fist, is that a strong punch or a weak punch? You can control that. But this is the bit you haven't seen before. It's going to be in this Friday's build, which is the preferred weapon slot. Now what this is, when you play a game, you may not start with like all 9 weapons, but a lot of games have the weapon slots pre-configured, so you always know that your knife will be on key 8, your pistol selections are 1 and 2, your rifles 3, 4, 5, and we've given you the choice of that. So for each key, keys pressing 1 through 9, 0 of course being put the weapon away, you get to choose which weapon that you want in that slot, and that will be remembered. And it's not just remembered for the level, it's remembered for the whole game. So you pre-configure that as though you're pre-configuring you know, your entire game experience. And down the road, I suspect we'll be adding other things like key configurations, controller configurations, and this may move to that. So this is pretty new. Let us know what you think about that. So I've been glancing at the questions. They've been popping away on the left side of my eye. I'm just checking the time. Looks like we're doing pretty good actually. I usually get to finish my chat in about 11 minutes from the start of the broadcast. Now we're at 9 minutes. And the good news is I wanted to mention a few more things that I don't usually do in broadcasts, but I'm going to call this the news section. This is after I've demonstrated some software. Now I actually want to show you, or rather not show you, but actually talk about some little items. This is basically what we're calling this Friday's build is what we call function complete. That's every button does something, it looks like it's going to look, and all the stuff is in there. All we're left with is a rather appreciable mountain of bugs, which we're going to start fixing in February, much to the relief of many people who've been hitting the head against one or two bugs the size of Mount Everest, and we're going to get rid of those nice and quick for you. But in addition to that, you're going to see some other things this Friday, next Friday, and the Friday after in the realms of bug fixing. Is the undo redo system is going to be expanded to the terrain, so you'll be able to undo and redo the sculpting of terrain, the painting of terrain, the addition and subtraction of trees and grasses. So look forwards to that. We're making a big push in the improvement of all 7 biomes. So right now you may create a few biomes that don't quite look right, what a tree's doing in the middle of a riverbed, etc. But we're going to expand that to, of course, not only include correct placement of the variants of grass and trees for each biome, but we're also going to populate those biomes with animals, and appropriate animals, whether they be rabbits or foxes or fish or snakes, and be correct for the correct biome, so watch out for that. And as I've already hinted at earlier, we're going to do a final pass of the weapon refinements, making sure all the speeds are correct, the damages are correct, the transition between those animations, making sure that everything is as the original creator intended, and we want to make sure we get that absolutely spot on before we inflict it on the world. So that's just a little bit of news. I usually don't tell you what's going to happen in the future. I'm much more comfortable showing you what we've already done. But as it's a special build, and this build is sort of, it's a transition now from a lot of new code functionality to let's keep the functionality we've got and start fixing all the bugs and polishing, and a certain amount of development iteration. It's not to say we're freezing all the exact details. That may still change as we do what's called development iteration, which is basically another word for polish and improvement of what we've got. So expect a lot of that stability to occur during February as we continue to release builds for you. So now I've finished all that gab, let me show you some questions. Now let's see if I can find my chat window. Here it is. Drag it over to the screen. Yes, that works lovely and fine. And we are now in the home stretch. We've got 3 minutes for official questions, maybe another 5 minutes of unofficial questions. If there's a knock at the door, I will stop while you chat amongst yourself in the live chat. But I am actually on door duty at the moment. I usually organise it out, but I can't really avoid it this time. So let's start at the top. Let's find some questions. Do you hear me? No, I don't hear anyone. I only hear myself. Okay. My question, when will the weather be updated? We are basing it a little bit. We're just putting some little touches to it, but we're not super convinced with the new weather system that we implemented. Again, sometimes you put in a new piece of code and you think it's going to need more work. More work than we really have time for the March release. So we are going to do maybe a few touches, maybe improve the resolution of the images that we're using for the weather system. But we're going to do let's call it weather system version 2 after March. So I just want to keep you aware of what's going on in the different sections of the software. Okay, here's a question from DLS Lee. And when, in what part of the year, as in the first, second, third, fourth part of 2022, will swimming and underwater be dealt with? Certainly not in the first quarter. We have a feature set now for our March release. But we are very interested in working more on water. That is the representation of the water, its capabilities within the game logic, and of course, swimming on it and swimming under it. But certainly not for the first quarter. Beyond that, I'm not too sure. We have a lot of other things we'd like to do. Maybe swimming will somehow come into the RPG element, which is scheduled for the second quarter, and so you may see more improvements there. But I can't commit to basically say when and which quarter, because I actually don't quite know right now. But I'll probably know maybe at the end of Feb. So please ask that question again if you're in the live chat a couple of weeks from now. Okay, what other questions do we have? Here's one from Fallen Ninja. With all of the lighting improvements made to GameGuru MAX, I can't help but notice that scenes tend to look flat compared to classic. Will there be options for ambient occlusion? There already is options for ambient occlusion. Oh, I know what you mean, like AO, ambient occlusion within the texture. Oh, of the models, there's over 1,000 objects in this library, have the AO channel filled in with the correct ambient occlusion, so it's already in there. But if you're talking about some sort of light mapping, which actually does the ambient occlusion for the whole scene, there are no plans to do pre-baked light mapping in GameGuru MAX, if we can help it. We want to try and stick to real-time stuff. As for the impression that it looks a little bit flat, that's entirely down to sort of the lighting model and where you place your lights, the time of day, the ambient light intensity and color settings. There's so many settings you can change, but we're not going to force you to try and endlessly tweak things until you get the one you look. We're going to do some level demos that'll be included in the merch release that show you a range of different lighting effects, different effects for different scenes, and you'll get an idea of how you can make your scenes pop. It is a bit of an art to actually get that to balance just right, but hopefully when we give you some demo levels, you'll just be able to copy the settings that we've used. So, I want an outdoor and I want it bright but deep shadows. You'll be able to find a level like that and then look at the settings that has been chosen for it. We're also making some improvements to the PBR algorithms as well, which may also improve that right out the box without you having to make any fiddly slider changes. So yeah, it's a great idea, a great question. Just keep an eye out for that, especially when we start releasing the demo levels. Oh, here's another one from Corsica. A mastering question: can you improve the view distance for vegetation? The last parameter added can lengthen the display distance, but they also move the plants away from each other. That's basically a compromise. You have the same number of grasses, you get to decide what to do with them. Bring them right up to the player for a nice dense grass coverage, or you can use the same number of grass blades but then push it out so it's less dense right under your feet, but the grass renders further in the distance. But we've not finished that yet. It's really obvious sometimes with the grass just cuts off. The whole idea of that technique is that the texture terrain underneath the grass absolutely matches the colour of the grass. You shouldn't see that transition. You shouldn't see a wave of grass suddenly appear. So remember the biome improvements I was talking about? The work is involved in that, about matching terrain texture colours to the grasses that sit on those terrain textures, and you shouldn't see that transition. And if you look at a lot of modern games, they do the same thing. They make sure that the textures on the terrain match very closely to the real 3D polygon grass that magically appears when the player gets close. So keep an eye out for the biome improvements to see a huge improvement on that, and you may find you don't really have to worry about the view distance too much. Okay, question. We've actually just got to the yes, Lee, we can hear you. So I guess this question's fired up very early. So well done there. Excavation Horror Gamer question. In what language will I have to program on GameGuru MAX? You will not have to program in GameGuru MAX. That's kind of one of the, let's call them the selling points of GameGuru MAX. You don't have to script. You don't have to code. You don't have to create art. All you got to do is have a great game idea. Fingers crossed that the assets exist somewhere in our library or the extended selection from our community and elsewhere, and then you can make your game. We take care of all the logic and the behaviours and the interactions and all the rest of it. If you absolutely insisted on wanting to program, it's Lua. You can go in, you can create your own scripts, you can create your own behaviours and then show those behaviours that other people can just drop into their game and use. But that programming language is Lua, L-U-A. Another question for old Lee. This is from Smool Forsyth. How would I go about coding and implementing things into GameGuru MAX? See previous answer, I guess. But I suppose if you want to start now, have a play around with Lua. And if you get GameGuru Classic, it's often on promotion, so you can get it at a really great price. It already has Lua built in, so you can actually start playing with scripts right now. And then once you're comfortable with that, it's the same scripting language for Max. So you can take a lot of what you've learned and start creating lovely little logics and behaviors that we haven't thought of or we haven't got around to creating for you yet. So yeah, there's always a little bit of wiggle room for those who like to code. But the bottom line of GameGuru MAX is you don't have to code, but you can still create a cool game. Okay, 3 question marks from Urgent Arts. When will we get arm and weapon templates so we can create our own models, animations to use in our own games made for Max? Great question, and rather appropriate for this week's broadcast, because I was looking at arms only yesterday. There's some new files. It's actually in GameGuru and a new folder called Extras. Now, for now, we've just given you the templates for the arms and hands that's holding the weapon. So you can go in and you can change those, the textures specifically. But that's just our starting point. We're going to create a guide which talks about the construction of the whole weapon, its rigging, its animation, and of course, the first thing you'd want to do, just as a trial run, change the hands, which are currently gloved, and the arms, because otherwise everyone's game will look like the same person holding these same weapons. So I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing what you come up with, and we will absolutely help you with templates, with files, in a format that you can just load in and make modifications. And we want to help there, because I think the more we can help, then the more interesting weapons will appear in the land of GameGuru MAX. Looking at the clock, I've bashed through the 20-minute mark. Gosh, that went fast, isn't it? I thought we had lots of time for questions. So as is my custom, I'm going to find 2 questions from people who haven't asked one before, but do not worry, I will answer the rest, not only from YouTube but also from Twitch, all the questions that I couldn't get to it live, let's say. So let's look for a question mark. I'm pretty keen on... Oh, here we go. Super confident man. I think it's the second time you managed to get one of these special, the last 2 questions. What can we do to keep continuity of the player's hand and arms? I suppose refer to the previous answer there. We've taken care of the first level of continuity in that all the arms and the hands are the same. So there's continuity there. But at the point where you want your game to be utterly unique, with different hands and arms, gloved or ungloved, etc., that's probably where we're going to start with the template. And then once you have a handle on that and you have some 3D art skills, then you'll be able to swap out the hands and, of course, its textures on that model, but still hold the same weapons. So I think it'll be really cool if we don't go whole hog and you have to create the whole weapon. Maybe you like the weapons, you just want to change the arms and the hands and the textures on them. So the templates will likely start there. Okay, last question of this broadcast. Sorry, DJLS, you asked yours earlier, if you remember. Oh, here's one. This is from Nomad Soul. Question: what keyboard are you using? It sounds like the keys are high quality. I don't know. It's Logitech. I know that. It's got one of the great big foamy wrist guards. Always, when you do a lot of typing, like 10 hours a day, you need to look after your ergonomics so you don't get repetitive strain injury. Let's say it was the best Logitech keyboard from 1 year ago with those clicky keys, which took me a while to get used to. And what I like about it is it glows in the dark, so I don't have to switch the light on when I'm typing, and I have a great big volume button top right with a mute button in the middle of it. That's all I ever use. I don't use all the special game-coded keys, but having glowing keys is super useful as the light gets darker and darker and you continue to carry on programming without any stopping or distracting. Hopefully that was contributing to the broadcast in general, and it was of some use to someone out there. I think that's about it. There's a build on Friday, so if you're lucky enough to be a pre-order user, you will get this build 2 days from now. So everything you've seen today, with a few extras, you'll see later. So until next Wednesday at 4 PM GMT, which is going to be the next broadcast, I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. I certainly have, and I'll speak to you all next week. So until then, I shall say goodbye.